The very first thing I did after being reborn was strangle the divine beast Azure Bird that I had nurtured with 10,000 years of my own essence blood. The reason was simple. On the day of my ascension in my previous life, the Azure Bird that I had bonded with using my heart's blood suddenly flew toward my junior brother, Mo Changqing. Mo Changqing rode the Azure Bird and passed through the 5 layers of heavenly lightning, cultivating a golden immortal body, while I lost my divine beast and was struck by heavenly tribulation, until my soul was completely destroyed, and all my cultivation was scattered. Afterward, Mo Changqing falsely accused me of stealing his divine beast. My fellow disciples ripped out my immortal bone and threw me into the demon vault, where I suffered endless torture for tens of thousands of years. Even until my death, I could not understand why the Azure Bird that I had nourished with my own essence blood betrayed me and chose Mo Changqing as its master. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the time before ascension. Soon it will be the day for all of you disciples to ascend, a familiar voice said. Ming Kang, among all these disciples, your talent is the most outstanding. It's a pity my son doesn't possess your abilities. He is naturally dull-witted. If only he had 1/10,000th of your talent, I wouldn't worry so much. Looking at the person before me, Venerable Jindu, I finally realized that I had truly been reborn. A monstrous hatred surged through my heart. The suffering of my previous life had surpassed even the pain of losing my immortal bone. The humiliation and torment of the demon vault were things I could never forget, even across countless lifetimes. Venerable Jindu continued praising me enthusiastically. Meng Chang, you are the disciple most favored by the sect master. Your ascension is approaching. You must properly train your divine beast and strive to cultivate a golden body. Although my heart burned with hatred, I lowered my head and smiled politely on the surface. Please rest assured, Venerable, I will cultivate diligently and ascend successfully. In truth, ascension did not depend only on one's cultivation. It also depended on the strength of one's divine beast. A powerful divine beast could help its master resist heavenly tribulations and even grant 10,000 years of cultivation. In my previous life, I had heard that if I signed a soul contract with a divine beast using my heart's blood, it would become intelligent and help me ascend. Because of that belief, every single day, I pierced my own chest with a silver needle, drawing out a bowl of steaming fresh blood to nourish the Azure Bird with my very life. The Azure Bird quickly grew 7 colored feathers and eventually cultivated its own primordial spirit. It could even dual cultivate with me. Ordinary Azure Birds could only serve as flying mounts and occasionally swallow water or spit fire, but their magical abilities were average. An Azure Bird capable of cultivating a primordial spirit like mine was already considered a top-tier divine beast. On the day of ascension, I brought my 7-colored Azure Bird to undergo the heavenly tribulation. But the moment Mo Changqing appeared, the bird spread its wings and flew straight to his side. Mo Changqing smiled arrogantly as he stroked the bird's feathers and publicly shouted at me, "Senior brother, so this is where my divine beast went after being stolen. You replaced it with an ordinary Azure Bird. So the thief was actually you. But senior brother, this 7-colored Azure Bird was raised by me every single day. It already shares a deep bond with me. No matter how much you steal, you can never take it away." The moment the other disciples saw the 7-colored Azure Bird, they all praised Mo Changqing for his extraordinary talent. Then they turned around and mocked me without hesitation. I really thought Meng Kang was talented. Turns out he's just a thief. Divine beasts are carefully raised by their masters and develop deep feelings for them. How could something like that even be stolen? The disciples had always favored Mo Changqing. It wasn't only because he was the youngest junior brother of the sect, but also because he was the biological son of Venerable Jindu. Riding my 7-colored divine bird, Mo Changqing became the first to break through the 5 layers of heavenly lightning and cultivate a golden immortal body. Meanwhile, my fellow disciples ripped out my immortal bone. With no cultivation left, I was struck by heavenly lightning until my flesh turned black and charred. And even then, Mo Changqing still proposed, looking at me with a smile, "Senior brother, you no longer have an immortal bone." In my previous life, Mo Changqing looked at me and said, "You will only bring shame to the reputation of the Tianyi sect. Although I do not blame you for stealing my divine beast, those who make mistakes must still be punished. As punishment, you shall undergo tribulation in the demon vault for 10,000 years." All of my fellow disciples praised Mo Changqing for being merciful, saying he had spared my life. But what followed was worse than death. They threw me into the demon vault, where I was trampled on and humiliated every single day. I endured endless suffering there for 10,000 years before finally being tortured to death. After returning to my room in this life, I immediately walked toward the cage in front of me. Inside was the very Azure Bird I had carefully raised in my previous life. The bird slowly approached me and rubbed its neck affectionately against my hand. As I stroked its neck, memories of the past flashed through my mind. Then my fingers tightened. With a sharp twist, I snapped its neck instantly. My heart ached with pain and hatred at the same time, but a beast that had betrayed afraid its master could never be allowed to continue living in this world. This time, I wanted to see how Mo Changqing would ascend without it. Afterward, I turned around and headed straight for the Immortal Spirit Forest. In my previous life, when I first entered that forest, I had seen several azure birds filled with immortal energy. The one I eventually chose had been lying deep within the forest with an injured wing, barely clinging to life. I had pitied it and brought it back to the sect. But now things were different. I needed to capture a new one. Since I had successfully nurtured a 7-colored azure bird, in my previous life there was no reason I could not do it again. After entering the Immortal Spirit Forest, I soon heard the clear cry of an azure bird echoing through the trees. Following the sound, I made my way deeper into the forest until I discovered a young bird beside a patch of immortal herbs. Its body was thin and weak, but its feathers shone with an extraordinary brilliance. The moment I saw it, I picked it up and carried it back to the sect. This time, I was extremely cautious. Every day, I kept the young bird inside a cage and fed it with complete dedication. At the same time, I placed powerful talismans around the entrance to my room so that no disciple would be able to casually enter and interfere. I had already paid the price of trusting others once, and I had no intention of repeating that mistake. This life belonged to me, and I would make sure that nobody, not even Mo Changqing, could steal my future again. This time, let's see how Mo Changqing steals it, I thought confidently. But only a few days later, I heard shocking news. Mo Changqing had also gone to the Immortal Spirit Forest and returned with a young bird of his own. The disciples were discussing it excitedly. "Junior brother is so kind-hearted. Why would he raise such a tiny bird?" one of them said. "It's just a little hatchling. Its body is so small that its wings can barely support it." The moment I heard that, my heart sank. Mo Changqing was raising a young bird too? There was no way such a coincidence could happen naturally. I immediately rushed back to my room and stared at the young bird inside my cage. Without hesitation, I reached out and snapped its neck. Then I entered the Immortal Spirit Forest once again. This time, I didn't care whether they were young birds, mature birds, or old birds. I captured dozens of azure birds and brought them all back to the sect. Every single one of them was locked inside the same cage. I deliberately refused to feed them, forcing them to fight among themselves for survival. Half a month later, only one bird remained alive. It was a fierce, battle-hardened adult bird that had slaughtered all the others. As I prepared to use a silver needle to draw my heart's blood and sign a contract with it, something completely unexpected happened. The azure bird suddenly became restless. It flapped its wings wildly and kept crying toward the doorway as if it sensed someone approaching. At that exact moment, a faint fragrance of osmanthus flowers drifted into my nose. I turned my head and saw Mo Changqing walking past my room on his way toward Venerable Jindu's residence. The instant Mo Changqing disappeared from sight, the bird inside my cage stopped crying and calmed down. I stood there frozen. Why? Why was this happening? Why did every divine beast I nurtured eventually recognize Mo Changqing as its master? Fear slowly began devouring my mind. That night, Venerable Jindu summoned me for a conversation. After the discussion ended and I stepped outside, I immediately ran into Mo Changqing. He looked at me and revealed a strange smile. "Senior brother, I heard you killed your own azure bird mount," he said. "You're incredibly talented. I'm looking forward to seeing you shine brilliantly on the day of ascension. You must prepare well." His tone carried an unmistakable hint of amusement, as if he knew something I didn't. Then he walked into Venerable Jindu's room. Instead of leaving, I quietly remained outside the door and listened to their conversation. Venerable Jindu asked, "Changqing, how is your divine beast progressing?" Mo Changqing chuckled softly before replying, "Father, I recently came up with a brilliant idea. Before, I raised a young bird, but it was too weak. It wasn't suitable as a mount at all. Honestly, it was only good enough to be cooked into soup. Recently, I thought of a much better method. I went into the Immortal Spirit Forest and captured more than a dozen azure birds. Then I locked them inside a cage together and trained them. I let them kill each other until only one remained. Now there is only a single adult bird left. It's fierce and difficult to tame, but its potential is extraordinary. I believe that if I raise it carefully, it will eventually transform into a 7-colored azure bird." Every word Mo Changqing spoke felt as though it had been intentionally directed at me. The process he described was exactly the same as the one I had used. Every step matched perfectly. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. What was going on? Where had I gone wrong? No matter how hard I thought about it, I could not find an answer. Yet one detail kept lingering in my mind. Earlier, when Mo Changqing had passed by me, I had once again smelled that familiar fragrance of osmanthus flowers coming from his body. But that made no sense. As far as I remembered, Mo Changqing had never liked perfumes or fragrances. And the Tianyi sect was a sacred immortal sect where disciples rarely used such worldly scents. The more I thought about it, the stranger everything became, and a growing feeling told me that the secret behind all my suffering might be hidden within that faint scent of osmanthus. In the Tianyi sect, Everyone focused on cultivation. Whether male or female, nobody liked the scent of cosmetics or perfumes. Yet at that moment, a realization slowly surfaced in my mind. On the day of ascension in my previous life, Mo Changqing seemed to have carried that same faint fragrance of osmanthus flowers. After returning to my room, I stared at the last remaining azure bird in the cage. After thinking for a long time, I picked up a dagger and stabbed the bird to death with my own hands. Since every azure bird I raised would eventually betray me, there was no point in keeping it alive. After killing the final bird, I made a decision. If Ascension was destined to end in disaster, then I would simply abandon Ascension altogether. Without hesitation, I went directly to Venerable Jindu and announced, "Venerable, I wish to descend into the mortal world and undergo tribulation." The moment he heard those words, Venerable Jindu flew into a rage. "Meng Kang, have you gone mad? Do you even realize what time this is? Your ascension is only days away. You have cultivated for 1,000 years for this very moment to ascend and become an immortal. You can descend and undergo tribulation at any other time. Why choose now?" Then he summoned all my fellow disciples and ordered them to persuade me. When everyone heard that I wanted to descend to the mortal world, every single one of them thought I had lost my mind. My senior brother kindly advised me, "Meng Kang, among all the disciples ascending this year, you have the greatest talent. Don't throw a childish tantrum now." Another disciple added, "That's right, senior brother. If you want to descend to the mortal world, you can do it later. Why now? Have you become confused?" Everyone looked heartbroken, but none more so than Venerable Jindu. His voice sounded like that of a loving father as he said, "Meng Kang, I raised you with my own hands. I absolutely will not allow you to make such a foolish decision." If I had not been reborn, I would have believed every word and thought he genuinely cared about me. Suddenly, the doors burst open and Mo Changqing rushed into the room. "Meng Kang, why did you kill all your azure birds?" The anxiety in his voice was obvious. I almost laughed. Without my birds, how exactly was Mo Changqing supposed to pass the heavenly tribulation? Venerable Jindu immediately said, "Meng Chang, if the birds are dead, then they are dead. I will give you another one. Raise it properly and never speak of descending to the mortal world again." But I ignored everyone's persuasion completely. Looking at the twisted expression on Mo Changqing's face filled me with satisfaction. Then I soared toward the immortal platform. Facing the endless mortal world beneath the heavens, I closed my eyes and jumped. 1 day in heaven equaled 1 year in the mortal realm. When I leapt from the immortal platform, there were only 18 days left before the ascension ceremony. 18 days in heaven meant 18 full years for me on earth. After descending, I did not waste any time among mortals. Instead, I headed straight for the demon vault. I still remembered the scent on Mo Changqing's body, the intoxicating fragrance of osmanthus. In my previous life, I would never have recognized it. But after suffering 10,000 years in the demon vault, I knew exactly what it was. The scent came from the 10,000 affection flower, a legendary plant that grew at the peak of the demon realm and possessed the ability to attract all beasts. 990,000 years ago, during the Great War between immortals and demons, the demon lord had used the fragrance of the 10,000 affection flower to lure countless immortal beasts. The resulting chaos had led to the deaths of 3 immortal venerables and numerous elders. Later, a great cultivator from the 9th heaven entered the demon realm and discovered the antidote known as the red Kang fruit. Using it, the immortals drove the demon lord into retreat. Eventually, the demons were forced to flee and establish themselves in the farthest reaches of the mortal world, forever losing their chance to dominate the heavens. I should have realized it sooner. Mo Changqing was colluding with the demon realm. For 18 years, I searched throughout the demon vault. Finally, within the 9th layer of the demon domain, I found the legendary red Kang fruit. 18 years passed in the mortal world, and at last the day of ascension arrived once again for the disciples of the Tianyi sect. This time, I had not cultivated an immortal body. Instead, I had cultivated demonic arts. Disguising myself as a young immortal attendant, I blended into the crowd to watch the ascension ceremony. There were not many disciples ascending this year, including Mo Changqing. There were only a little more than 10. Without me participating, the most talented disciple had become my junior brother, Yun Hezi. Riding his azure bird, Yun Hezi was the first to step onto the ascension platform. But just as he commanded the bird to carry him upward, the azure bird suddenly went berserk. In the next moment, it spat Samadhi True Fire and crazily attacked Yun Hezi. The surrounding disciples were stunned. "What is happening?" one shouted. "Why has junior brother Yun's azure bird gone mad?" Another exclaimed, "Isn't that Yun junior brother's divine beast? Divine beasts are supposed to be loyal. Why would it attack its own master?" At that moment, Mo Changqing stepped out from the crowd. He casually waved his hand, and the azure bird immediately flew to his side. Then it let out a cheerful cry of delight. Mo Changqing gently stroked the bird while looking at Yun Hezi with a deeply wronged expression. "Senior brother Yun, why did you steal my divine beast?" I raised this azure bird every day, and it already formed a bond with me. Even if you stole it, it would never obey your commands. I almost applauded. The same old trick again. The only difference was that this time I had not participated in the ascension ceremony, so the unlucky victim had changed from me to junior brother Yoon. Hearing Mo Changqing's accusation, Yoon Hezi looked completely bewildered. Junior brother, what are you talking about? I personally raised this azure bird. How could it possibly be yours? Mo Changqing immediately laughed. Senior brother Yoon, everyone knows that azure birds recognize the person who raises them. Although I haven't raised this bird for very long, I feed it with my heart's blood every single day. It already recognizes me as its master. No matter how cleverly you steal it, you can never truly take it away. At once, the disciples of the Tianyi sect began nodding in agreement. That's right. Azure birds recognize their masters. The birds we raise will only acknowledge a single master in their entire lives. There's no way such a bond can be stolen. As I watched the familiar scene unfold before my eyes, the rage buried within my heart surged once more. Everything was happening exactly as it had in my previous life. The only difference was that now, I finally understood the secret hidden behind it all. And this time, I had come prepared. The disciples immediately began speaking one after another. Azure birds only recognize one master for their entire lives. They would never change their loyalty. How could senior brother Yoon do something so shameless? This is absolutely disgusting. Junior brother works so hard. Every day he endures the pain of drawing his heart's blood just to nourish his azure bird. Yet Yoon Hezi actually stole his mount. He brought this upon himself. A despicable person like him doesn't deserve to remain in the Tianyi sect. That's right, the thief must be expelled from the sect. He must be severely punished. Standing on the ascension platform, Yoon Hezi was already covered in wounds. Faced with countless accusations, he could barely defend himself. He stared at Mo Changqing in disbelief and shouted, "Junior brother, how can you slander me like this?" Mo Changqing immediately put on a wronged expression and said pitifully, "Senior brother Yoon, I know you stole my azure bird because you wanted to ascend. Honestly, I shouldn't have exposed you in front of so many people today. If you hate someone, hate me. But if you want to blame anyone, blame yourself for abandoning the righteous path and choosing to become a thief." Yoon Hezi was never good with words. Meanwhile, Mo Changqing's innocent act fooled all the senior brothers and sisters around him. One by one, they began sympathizing with him instead. Just then, the person who had been absent the entire time finally appeared. Accompanied by a brilliant golden light, Venerable Jindu slowly descended onto the ascension platform. The moment he arrived, he immediately declared Yoon Hezi guilty. "Yoon Hezi, you have truly disappointed me. Last night, I saw you sneaking around outside Changqing's room. At the time, I assumed you merely wished to speak with him, so I said nothing. Never did I imagine that you would steal Changqing's azure bird for your own selfish desires. The Tianyi sect can no longer keep someone like you. From this day forward, I shall remove your immortal bone. Go descend to the mortal world and live as a common man." Hearing those words, my eyes grew cold. In my previous life, he had used that exact same tone to declare me the thief. Without any investigation, he had decided my guilt with a single sentence. Then they removed my immortal roots, severed the tendons in my limbs, and threw me into the demon vault. Inside that hellish place, a red-furred fox demon tortured me day after day. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. Back when I was barely clinging to life, that fox demon had whispered something into my ear. "Who do you think you are to compete for his things? He is an immortal of the heavens, while you are merely a servant of the demon race. Naturally, my flesh and blood deserves the greatest treasures in the world." At the time, I never understood what those words meant, but now everything became clear. Mo Changqing was actually the son of that red-furred fox demon. In my previous life, everyone knew Venerable Jindu was Mo Changqing's father, but nobody knew the identity of his mother. The clues had been there all along. I had simply been too stupid to see through the schemes of their family. While I was lost in thought, Venerable Jindu had already cast his spell. Yoon Hezi's immortal bone was ripped from his body. With a wave of his sleeve, he threw Yoon Hezi off the immortal platform. Meanwhile, Mo Changqing stood there proudly stroking the azure bird beside him. Then he leaped onto its back, lowered his head, and whispered something into its ear. The bird spread its wings and carried him onto the ascension platform before soaring straight toward the ninth heaven. In an instant, thunder, lightning, and heavenly flames filled the sky. At the same time, I secretly pulled the red kang fruit from my pocket and crushed it. A sharp, sour scent immediately spread through the air. This scent was the natural enemy of the 10,000 affection flower, and could completely neutralize its influence. Within moments, the fragrance drifted across the ascension platform. High above the crowd, Mo Changqing was still riding the azure bird confidently when his body suddenly jerked. Nobody noticed it at first, but the Azure Bird had already begun losing control. Then, a heavenly lightning bolt crashed directly toward him. "Azure Bird, use your flames!" Mo Changqing shouted desperately, but before the bird could obey, it completely lost control. It flapped its wings frantically and suddenly turned around to attack him instead. In the blink of an eye, Samadhi True Fire engulfed Mo Changqing's body. His flesh burned black, and before he could escape, another heavenly lightning bolt pierced straight through his skull. Everyone watched in horror as Mo Changqing's body floated in midair. His skin turned dark, while a ghostly white glow emerged from the skeletal remains inside him. It was the unmistakable sign of an immortal bone being destroyed by heavenly tribulation. Venerable Jindu's face instantly changed. He shot into the air, caught Mo Changqing, and carefully carried him back to the Ascension platform. The disciples of the Tianyi sect stood frozen in shock. What just happened? Why did the Azure Bird betray Junior Brother? Could it be that this divine beast never belonged to him in the first place? By now, Mo Changqing's immortal bone had been shattered, and all his cultivation was gone. Venerable Jindu's eyes burned with fury. Raising his palm, he struck the crazed Azure Bird and killed it on the spot. Then he roared, "A worthless beast almost killed my son!" At that moment, I slowly stepped out from the crowd. Looking at the scene before me, I let out a cold laugh filled with mockery. "The Azure Bird isn't at fault at all," I said loudly. "If you want to blame someone, blame Mo Changqing for using filthy methods to steal Junior Brother Yun's divine beast. This is nothing more than karma." The moment those words left my mouth, everyone turned toward me. Countless eyes locked onto my figure. "Who is that?" someone asked in shock. "Why does his voice sound so familiar?" Suddenly, the entire Ascension platform fell silent as every gaze focused on me. The truth that had been buried for so long was finally about to come to light. "Only 18 days have passed? How could he possibly be back already?" someone shouted in disbelief. Another disciple immediately cried out, "It's really Meng Kang. 1 day in heaven equals 1 year in the mortal world." The crowd erupted into chaos. At that moment, several younger disciples looked at me with confusion and asked, "Senior Brother Meng Kang, what did you mean by what you just said? Why did you say Junior Brother Mo stole Yunhezi's Azure Bird?" Clearly it was Yunhezi who had evil intentions and stole Junior Brother Mo's divine beast. Hearing that, I raised an eyebrow and smiled coldly. Then I slowly walked toward Venerable Jindu and Mo Changqing. Reaching into my sleeve, I pulled out a small red fruit. Holding it up for everyone to see, I said, "Junior Brother Mo, you never expected this, did you? The rouge intoxication you obtained from the demon realm could never guarantee your ascension. All it takes is a single red Kang fruit like this to neutralize its enchanting fragrance." The moment Venerable Jindu heard my words, his face turned deathly pale. However, he immediately stood up and loudly rebuked me. "Meng Kang, what nonsense are you talking about? Why is there such dense demonic energy around your body? You descended to the mortal world as an ordinary human. Yet after only 18 years, you somehow returned to the Ascension platform. You cultivated demonic arts," as expected of Venerable Jindu. With just one glance, he saw the demonic aura surrounding me. Then he roared in anger, his expression filled with disappointment. "Meng Kang, how could you walk the path of demons? Not only that, but you even used demonic techniques to harm your own junior brother. I truly misjudged you." I almost laughed. With only a few simple sentences, he was already trying to throw all the blame onto me. The disciples of the Tianyi sect immediately exploded into discussion after hearing his accusations. One senior brother pointed at me and shouted, "Meng Kang, you actually became a demon cultivator. Since you walk the demonic path, you are the enemy of the Tianyi sect. Today, I will personally kill you." Another disciple followed. "That's right, eliminating demons is our duty." The Azure Bird going mad and attacking both Yunhezi and Mo Changqing must have been his doing. At the same time, Venerable Jindu quietly gathered spiritual power in his palm, preparing to launch a sneak attack from behind. Looking at all of them, I let out a cold snort through clenched teeth. "A bunch of fools," I said. "All of you combined can't even produce a single golden body cultivator, yet you think you can kill me?" The next moment, I shot into the sky and landed at the center of the Ascension platform. Looking down at the familiar ground beneath my feet, memories of my previous life flooded my mind. Back then, I had stood here as well, riding my Azure Bird toward ascension. Yet despite all my preparations, I had still failed to survive the 5 heavenly tribulations. Suddenly, a thought surfaced in my heart. Why did immortal sect disciples rely on Azure Birds to ascend? Why did they depend on divine beasts to resist heavenly lightning? My fate belongs to me, not to heaven. The instant that realization appeared, my eyes turned crimson red. Without hesitation, I charged straight toward the 9th heaven alone. The disciples below were completely stunned. "Meng Kang has gone insane," someone shouted. "Without an Azure Bird, there's no way to survive the heavenly tribulation. He's seeking death." But I paid no attention to them. I continued soaring higher and higher toward the heavens. As I ascended, dark clouds gathered above me. Thunder roared across the sky while the waters of the heavenly river poured down endlessly, washing over my body. The pressure was overwhelming, enough to crush ordinary cultivators instantly. Yet I refused to stop. Then, just as the heavenly river completely swallowed me, something extraordinary happened. A dazzling 5-colored radiance suddenly erupted from within my body. Brilliant light burst through the endless waters and illuminated the entire sky. Every disciple of the Tianyi sect stared upward in shock. The crowd became completely silent. Then a disciple hidden among the crowd muttered in a trembling voice, "An immortal body that cannot die." As those words spread through the crowd, countless expressions changed instantly. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing, because the legendary physique that countless cultivators had pursued for millions of years was now appearing before their eyes. And it was emerging from the person they had all once condemned and abandoned, me, Meng Chang. A disciple stared at the sky with trembling eyes and whispered, "For 100,000 years, no one has managed to cultivate the 7-colored soul body." Another disciple immediately exclaimed, "Meng Chang has become an ancient divine god. The last ancient divine god appeared over 100,000 years ago." The moment those words spread, the entire ascension platform fell into silence. Then, one after another, the disciples dropped to their knees and began kowtowing toward the heavens. Even Venerable Jindu, who had always stood high above everyone else, could not hide the fear on his face. His body trembled as he knelt on the ground, repeatedly muttering, "How is this possible? How can this be?" At the same time, I shattered the 5th heavenly tribulation and absorbed every bolt of lightning and every strand of heavenly fire directly into my body. My figure floated high above the 9th heaven, overlooking all existence. At that moment, I felt completely detached from worldly emotions. Looking down at the crowd below, I spoke in a cold voice devoid of any warmth. "Venerable Jindu, do you know your crimes?" My voice echoed throughout heaven and earth. "Back then, when you descended to eliminate demons, you secretly had relations with the red-furred fox demon of the demon realm and gave birth to the abomination known as Mo Chang Ching. To protect your son, you joined forces with the fox demon and obtained rouge intoxication, using it to attract azure birds and frame your fellow disciples. Do you know your crimes?" Venerable Jindu immediately tried to defend himself, but before he could speak, I casually flicked a finger. Instantly, a massive divine halo appeared above the 9th heaven. As an ancient divine god, I possessed the power to observe both the past and the future. Within the halo, scenes from the past began appearing one after another. Everyone watched as Venerable Jindu embraced the red-furred fox demon in secret. Then another scene appeared, showing Mo Changqing and Venerable Jindu plotting together inside a room. Mo Changqing's face was twisted with malice as he said, "With the rouge intoxication Mother gave me, I will definitely ascend this year. I want Meng Kang's azure bird. A bastard with no parents has no right to possess such a treasure. Not only will I take his azure bird, but I will also remove his immortal bone, sever his tendons, and throw him into the demon vault." To everyone's horror, the normally kind and respected Venerable Jindu nodded in agreement. "That's right. Anyone who dares stand in my son's way will pay the price. I'm already tired of being an elder of the Tianyi sect. Son, once you cultivate a golden body, we'll find a way to seize control of the entire sect. When that day comes, everything under heaven and earth will belong to our family." As the scenes played out inside the divine halo, the truth was revealed for all to see. The ambitions, greed, and schemes of Venerable Jindu and Mo Changqing were completely exposed. Shock spread across the faces of every disciple present. Many of them looked as though their entire world had collapsed. With another wave of my sleeve, I directly stripped Venerable Jindu of his immortal bone. As for Mo Changqing and the red-furred fox demon, I had no intention of sparing them either. In my previous life, I had suffered endless torment in the demon vault for 10,000 years. This time, I decided to be a good person and reunite their family forever. Beyond the heavens existed a place known as the Valley of 10,000 Sorrows. There stood 18 heaven-piercing pillars, each covered with countless golden spikes. Every day, innumerable evil spirits descended there to tear apart the flesh and organs of those imprisoned within. Looking at Venerable Jindu, Mo Changqing, and the red-furred fox demon, I decided to give them a special gift. Raising my hand, I spoke in the name of a divine god. "I hereby decree that Venerable Jindu, Mo Changqing, and the red-furred fox demon shall share the lifespan of heaven and earth itself. May they live forever and endure endless suffering for all eternity. May their torment repeat without end, never ceasing for a single day." The moment my decree was completed, divine laws descended upon them. Their screams echoed throughout the heavens as they were dragged away toward the Valley of 10,000 Sorrows. After dealing with Venerable Jindu and the others, I took one final glance at the world below. The Tianyi sect, the disciples, the grudges, and the hatred that had once consumed my life all seemed insignificant now. Then, with a single step, my figure vanished completely beyond the ninth heaven, disappearing into the endless cosmos. From that day onward, the legend of Mengkong spread throughout every realm. Some called me the ancient divine god, who shattered fate itself. Others spoke of me as the immortal who ascended without relying on a divine beast. But none of that mattered anymore. The moment I left the heavens behind, all grudges from both lifetimes finally came to an end.